I wanted to make a relatively short video about how to set up a HUD for your Unreal Engine graphics tool. I say relatively because as I think will become apparent through this video, this could easily be a 3-hour or more video going over this. But I'm going to try to keep it short. What I'm going to try to do is show you kind of the basics of how to get the framework started, and then kind of the labor intensive part is putting all the details in. So I'll give an overview of how to set it up, and then we'll walk through how to step by step how to set up a couple of these features in here. Once you kind of set up one of these, I think you'll be able to see how to set up the rest of it for however you want it configured. So let's take a look at how I have mine structured here. This is pretty simplistic. So down at the bottom left is a visualization for the controls. So aileron, rudder, elevator, throttle, and these arrows move accordingly in these bars. On the left-hand side here is airspeed. I have it in knots just because. And then it has this ticker tape that will actually move. Same thing on the opposite side for altitude. And then at the top I have heading. So same thing, this ticker tape will move and display the actual heading value in this box. This arrow down at the bottom here is a roll indicator. So this arrow rotates, and each of these lines here are 10, 20, 30 degrees of roll. And then the main horizontal lines here with the numbers on the side is a pitch indicator. So this will move up and down for your elevation angle. Finally, this little reticle here is a flight path visualizer. So this will show kind of the trajectory of the flight. Let me just run this real quick so you can kind of see it operating in real time. So if I pitch up, you see the pitch ticker tape going up and down. If I roll, and then you can see the altitude and airspeed tickers on the left and right hand side moving up and down. And then you can see my controls on the very bottom left. And then if I turn, you can see the heading tape on the top moving as well. And then the flight path marker, you can see that's. So if I maintained this attitude, that would be where the aircraft would track to. Okay, so now that we see what we're trying to work towards, let's start looking at how to set that up. First thing to look at is so in your level here, you come to the right hand side. Usually we look at this details tab here, go to the world settings, and you can open this up a variety of ways. I think you can, that's there, and there's a couple of different ways to open this up. You don't have to open it up here, but what you'll see is this game mode here, and you probably won't have anything here. And what this does is specifies a game mode where you can specify like the pawn, the characters using a HUD, and some other things that can be helpful. But what we're going to use it for is for a HUD. So this will overlay a blueprint on the screen, which is pretty convenient for us. So you probably won't have anything here. So you'll hit this plus here, and actually I'll see if I can just start this from scratch. I'll say game mode test. I'll save it in my blueprints folder, and then it'll select that. If it doesn't, you can find it in this drop down here. And then you probably won't have anything here for the HUD. You can hit plus again and make a HUD here. You can also start an empty blueprint, how we've kind of done, and search for HUD here. I'm just going to do it this way. HUD test. Save that. This will open. I'll put that there for a second. And okay, so I think we're good there. Let's take a look at what we need to put in this class here. So what we want to happen is, so we specified in our game settings that to use this blueprint for our HUD. So what we want it to do is when we begin, we want to create this widget. It's called, we'll look at widgets here in a second, but we'll get the player controller and we're going to make our blueprint HUD, and we're basically going to make this widget and it's going to add it to the viewport. So I don't think, I'm trying to remember if you guys need this. We'll look at that in a second. But anyway, so all we need to do in this blueprint class is to basically add our widget that we're going to make here. We'll look at this after we create our widget blueprint. So let's come back here and we basically need to make that widget blueprint. So you can come in here and search for widget. I believe it's user widget. And I'll call this blueprint HUD test. Okay, so couple of new things here. It'll open here. So this is the designer. So this is where you'll actually design the look of the HUD. If you hit this graph tab up here, it'll open up a blueprint that should look familiar to you. So essentially what we're going to do is design the HUD here. Actually, I'll show you what mine looks like. So you'll design the HUD in here using various properties, and then you're going to link some of these as variables, and then you can adjust these variables in the blueprint to update them. So actually, let's look at how I have mine set up first. So a reason why this can take a while is because, at least the way I'm doing it, is each of these are actually an image that I made. So if I come here, I just have a folder of my assets here, and each of these is its own picture. So if I open this up, these are all just drawings and they're imported as textures, but all of these are just pictures. So that ticker tape on the side, it's a big long image that it just scrolls through. So that's why this can't really be a step-by-step, because it would take forever. But it's kind of straightforward of designing that, and then you just import it as a texture. You should be able to find videos on that online if that's not that straightforward. But so all these are just images, and then you don't have to go in this level of detail to get a HUD working. So it's worth noting that this whole process that we're going through creating a HUD, most of it is almost identical to what you would go through to overlay anything on the screen. So if you remember, like when we've been debugging and adding print statements, as it says here, this is for development only. So this will only print to the screen in this editor. When you make an executable, this won't even show up. So if you want text on the screen that the player can see, that's when you need to add a widget and add it to the viewport so it'll actually show up on the screen. Same thing applies if you're like making a level or excuse me, like a main menu or something. And you want the player to be able to like click buttons like on a menu. I can pull up this one real quick. So this is a main menu level, but then I have a widget over top that that you can like interact with with these properties, and then these update, properties in the other blueprints. But that's how you do that. It's kind of the same structure. So mine's a little complicated because I have these ticker tapes moving. These are probably the most difficult thing to get working in here. So you may just want to just update a box with a single value just to start out, make it simple for yourself. Because what I had to do is, so what happens here is these images will move up, but I want this value to stay fixed inside this box. So I have this number over top of the one behind it, and it looks really ugly if there's two numbers right on top of each other. So I then have this material that's a mask that pretty much just removes behind it, so that you don't see so that mask goes over the top of this box, so it hides anything behind it, if that makes sense. We'll see if we can look at that closer here in a minute. But all I'm trying to get at is, if you want to put images in here, just make them externally in some tool, or download something from the internet and input them as textures, and you can just drag them in here. We'll walk through an example here in a second, but this is how it's set up. I even have my own font in here so everything's the same font, but again, you don't need that. Okay, so let's look at how this is kind of structured. So in here, you have these canvas panels. So you can see this whole thing is a canvas panel here, and to add anything in here, you just type it up here. So canvas panel, that'll add in here. The main one, it'll have you drag it to be the kind of screen size you want. And then this is a canvas that you kind of put everything in. So then you can see, let me just minimize these to make it a little cleaner. You can see I have other canvas panels. So I have one here for this whole box. And what this does is just kind of constrains the movement here. So a lot of this is, there's a lot of different ways to go about setting this up, but it's really advantageous to make things as clean as possible. So like the HUD, sometimes your screen size will change, and Unreal will try to resize elements in here to what it thinks, what makes the most sense to keep them in the screen and proportional. And if you just put things in here willy-nilly, it may look fine in the editor, but when you package it, it's going to look awful. So what you kind of want to do is anything that moves, you want to have it constrained. So we'll actually make one of these from scratch here in a second, but just to show you how this works, this image is an element inside this canvas panel. So when I move the alignment, back and forth here, it's really easy to just align this in the canvas panel. We'll look at that in a second, but there's a couple main things that we'll use. So canvas panel is one of them. Retainer box is another. So I use retainer boxes for these ticker tapes, and it'll basically cut off anything outside of here. So you can see this image. Whoops. If I select the image itself, you can see the image goes all the way down here, but the restraining box cuts it off, so you don't see that. And then, so retainer box, canvas panel we talked about, and then these are just images here. And then you can add text. So same thing up here. You can just search for text and just put text on here. So like the values inside these boxes are just text boxes, and I have them linked as variables that I can update. So that's kind of this side. These are the elements that you add inside of here. Now, like I mentioned, so you update these as variables. So what you do is you click on one of these, it'll open up this details panel, and you can change position, size, alignment, the actual text, since it's a text box, color, all sorts of things, font. These are my own fonts I put in here. Size, and then if you want it to be a variable, you click this box and it'll automatically make a variable in here for you to modify. So let's go to, it's a little messy, but let's go to a simple one. Okay, so here, so the altitude, this is this box. What it does is, so from my F-16 blueprint, I retrieve my vehicle position, and all you do here is you can search for get whatever variables you have here. So in my F-16, I have these variables here, and you can access those. And you can search. So I'm just getting the position, getting the altitude here, the Z, and then this is centimeters, so this converts it to feet, and then I return that, and I set the value of this variable to that. So you'll see, so this alignment, set alignment, if I come here, this variable has this alignment properties. So the names of these are available in the blueprint. So like if I wanted to update the position, I could drag off here and do like set position, and it would set those position variables. Again, this is up to you, but I've found that it's cleaner to update the alignment rather than the position. Yeah, so like here you can see I'm modifying the alignment here rather than changing the position there. Okay, so that's kind of the basics here. So if you weren't making a HUD and you just wanted text on the screen, you'd add a text box and then have something control what the text it's actually displaying. Yeah, there's some other things there, that other tools for adding text and stuff, but that's generally as simple as you can make it as simple as that. Okay, so if you're not completely lost so far, let's try to make this from scratch. So what is this guy? Just to keep myself straight with all of these, I'm going to drag these into my other monitor, maybe. Okay, so now that we made our widget here, so this is my widget. The widget, you'll have the designer and graph, and then this is our game mode. So let's set up our game mode. We don't need these. What we're going to do is get player controller, and then create, what is it? We'll create widget. And now that we created a widget, we can find it in here. So mine was HUD test. Connect that. You may not need to make a reference variable here. I don't recall. I'm not going to add that, and we'll see if we need that later. I'm going to search for add to view, maybe not. Add to viewport. So this is getting the player controller, and we're telling it that we want to create our widget and then add it to the viewport, which is pretty much just your screen. And that's all we need to do in here. So save that, compile, and then you can kind of forget about that that game mode. All right, we're in our blueprint HUD widget. So let's start really simple. Let's add our canvas panel. So search for canvas panel, drag it in, and it defaults to this. I'll just leave it there for that screen size. What do we want to add first? Let's do the pilot control indicator. So you're not going to be able to follow along exactly because I'm using my images here, but you'll see how I can do it in real time. So I drag that in, and I'm just going to copy the values that I determined before. So I want this here at this size. Oh, something important is, so everything you add pretty much is going to have this anchor, and this is going to be the reference for everything. You can see as I drag this, the position is changing. I like to put it just right smack dab in the middle, so everything is referencing the center of the plane here. I just find that makes everything a lot simpler. But that's up to you. Okay, and then I'm going to hit size to content, and Unreal is going to size this the way it thinks. And from what I believe, I think this helps to size it more cleanly when like the screen size changes. I think that's the main thing. So then I'm actually going to change the image size, then scaling it up here. 153. Okay, and it's using the image that I just dragged in there. And for all these, like if this was a material or a texture, like you can just double click this and it'll open it up. Okay, I think that's all I need to do here. Actually, I'm going to so now I have this the size that I want. I'm going to rename this. Just something like that. And then I'm going to make the aileron. It's rinse and repeat for all the other ones. I'm going to add a canvas panel here. And again, the anchor is going to be up here. I'm going to put it in the middle. And from what I've found, I want this to be and that's it. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so you can see now my canvas box is right over top of the scale that I want. So just rename this real quick. Just keep things organized. Then I'm going to add in my little pointer here. And for this, I'm actually going to put the anchor in the middle of this canvas box. Actually, I'm going to put it, where do I want this? Oh, make sure the image is a component of the canvas. Okay, and then I'm going to put this in the middle up at the top. And this is really just to make aligning things easier. So you can see when I do 0, 0 now here, It'll end up aligning this a lot better. It's hard to tell right now. So then alignment, if I do half, it puts it halfway in the middle here. 0.1. I'm going to let it size to what it thinks. Then I'm going to correct it here. And for some reason I have to scale it down here. I don't know why I had to do that before. Okay, so now we have this triangle in here, and we can kind of test the functionality here. So if we have this alignment, if I move this one, it moves up and down. If I move this one to the side, it goes here. So we can see you can get kind of clever with this so that the ends of the canvas are like round numbers up here to make this the range easier. Yeah, so you'll have to kind of tune this so that you know, your maximum deflections will result in here. Which what you can do is just take this value and like make a ratio out of it. But anyway, so we're gonna modify this value in our blueprint. So when you move this, make sure it moves in here how you want. You put that in the middle. I call this aileron pointer. Why not? And I'm going to say this is a variable. So once I do that, I can come back here, and now I have this aileron pointer variable. I can drag that in. And let's add some logic for this. So we need to get the control values from our vehicle blueprint. So I'm going to search get player pawn. So remember that our aircraft blueprint that we made, the blueprint type was of type pawn. So if you have different aircraft, it really doesn't matter. It's going to pull whatever pawn it's using right now. And this part's going to be a little tied to the F-16 just to make it a little simpler. So I'm going to cast this as F-16, and acting as if I was the F-16 blueprint, I'm going to get controls, and this is a function I made, so I don't think I showed this in previous videos, but same way we made this update states function, I just made a new function get controls that that I can pull all these values at once. So see, there's these variables here that we updated the controls. What you could do is off of here search for get each of those variables. But this is a little cleaner to be able to pull all of them at once. So that's all this is. Okay, now we have access to our controls here. So for the way I set this up, I'm going to need to multiply this. So these are in degrees, I believe, starting out. So to get it, well, I'll show that in a second. Let's add this first. So this is our variable, and we want to search for get render translation. And I'm going to make this. And I'm just updating the translation of this. There's a couple of ways, again, there's a couple of things you can call here. Not alignment, get canvas, where is it? Slot as a canvas slot, and then I think you can have access to set alignment. So there's a couple of different ways where you can update this. It's just how you want to set it up. So here I want to, for this case, I want to update the X translation, and I have to multiply this by -69 to get my deflection to match the range of the position moving this back and forth. So I had to just find that. It's kind of a guess and check method of finding what the ratio is between those. Connect that, and I think that's all. Let me compile and save, and I believe, yep, so that's updated. So if I hit play, now it's only showing that, and now if I hit my aileron keys to update my aileron, you can see that arrow jumping around. Okay, so that's kind of the whole loop of setting up a HUD. You kind of saw the whole process of adding something in here. So the only thing that's not going to be exactly the same is, you know, I made this image, so you can make your own or download it offline, and then you just import the image in here, and then the setup is, the process is the same. Trying to decide which element is best to show next. I think I'll show how to do the pitch here, because it kind of combines. I think more people will want to have this working than the ticker tapes on the side, and it applies kind of the same process. So let's start with that. Again, this is using an image that you won't have, but what we're going to start with is, actually I'm going to throw this in here. Whoops. This is just going to make my life a little easier. Okay, so all I did was add this. This is just a static image. This won't move, but you can see it helps to outline where everything's supposed to go. So it's just all these boxes and these tickers that stay static throughout the whole flight. That's just going to help me align things a little easier. I'm going to try to go through this one a little faster, just for the sake of time. So what we need first, since the pitch scale is going to be bigger here, we want to cut it off. So I'm going to search for retainer box, throw that in there. I'm going to move the anchor to be in the middle. And let me consult my working version. Okay, so a retainer box. So anything I add below this it's going to cut off in this box. So I'm going to now add a canvas panel, make sure that's a component of this, and then I'm going to add my pitch scale image and make sure that's a component of that. Yep. Move this reference to the middle. And then I need to scale this. I am going to have this scale that automatically. I'm going to correct it by changing the size of the image there. Okay, so you can see my image is getting cut off correctly. And except this should be aligned up there. Why isn't it? That's not in the right position. Okay. There we go. That's aligned center there. And now I'm going to make this a variable. I'm just going to call this pitch scale. Make this a variable. Hop back over here. And let me find this. Okay. I'm going to drag this in here. And this one I'm actually going to use the set alignment. So I'm going to slot this, use set alignment. Okay, and I'm just going to drag this over here to be quick. I'm going to get a vehicle oiler again. This is just my local variable in my F-16 blueprint. Break this apart. So now I have phi, theta, and psi. And let's see how I had to scale this. So I want this to stay in the middle of my alignment. So if I left that at 0, when it would update that, it would move this to 0 there, which we don't want. I want to keep that at 0.5, so I keep 0.5 there, but we want to change the y because this is for pitch up and down. So I'm going to take my pitch angle, divide by 180. Whoops. I'm going to add 0.5. I believe that's because I want it in the middle. I think that's what that's for. And then there. So that's going to make it move up and down. But if you notice when I was flying it, it also rotates. Yeah, that's right. So we also want to rotate this with bank angle, which we already have. So what we're actually going to do, so this is going to set the alignment. What we also want to do is set render transform pivot. I'll show what this is in a second. And set render transform angle. I'm going to connect bank angle up there. Connect these. And we'll do this. Okay, so let's look at what these are. So we're familiar with set alignment. That's modifying these. So it's staying at 0.5, but with our pitch angle, it's going to move. It's going to scroll this up and down. It's come down here. So here's pivot. What this does is, let's see. What's an easy way to show this? Okay, so let's look at the transform angle first. So here's transform, and angle is down here. So you can see this rotates here. But if you wanted to rotate around not the origin, you could move this and it pretty much makes just a rotation arm that then you can rotate about. You can see that here, what that does. So that's why I have 0.5 here, I believe, is to put this in the middle, I think. Where you would use this too is so, let me pull up my complete one. It'll be easier to show on this one. So this triangle down here is my roll indicator. So what this does is this rotates to match up with these lines here for the different degrees, 10, 20, 30 degrees. come down here to pivot. So see, when I move this angle, it moves up how I want. If I didn't have a pivot point and I moved angle, you can see it just rotates about its own. 0, 0 is up here. I think that's what it's doing. So this just sets, you know, where the kind of origin is. Actually, let me go. Hopefully I can undo all that. Did I break it? I might have. Oh, there we go. I just selected on the wrong thing. Yeah, so this is setting the Y, so this is actually rotating, you know, up here to match this radius here. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do here. We're just setting the pivot point here. There's other things you can see you can do here. I messed with the scale for a couple of the other ones, translation. Yeah, so this is setting our pivot point, which, oh, I accidentally undid all that. Let me add this back real quick, make this. Okay, I think that's correct. So it's going to get my Euler angles. It's going to translate up and down the image with this certain ratio. So I divide by the maximum range to get a ratio. I offset it to put it in the middle. And I update the pivot point, and then I rotate it by phi. I save that, and let's see how it does. Okay, so you can see if I pitch up and down, so theta is just translating that image up and down. If I roll, you can see it's now banking with my roll. Okay, so let's take a look now. So I think this is where I'll stop it. So it's kind of the same concept for the other elements. So let me pull back this one. Same thing with these ticker tapes here. So these are images, but I'm moving them up and down according to what value is there. Same deal here. Let's actually look at this blueprint. We can just glance at these real quick. So the controls, we did the aileron, rinse and repeat with all of the other ones. This is my heading. So I have a mask for the heading, as I talked about before, to hide the values behind the number in the box. So I get my heading divided by 360 to get a ratio, put that in there, and then I truncate and wrap that value to get a text to display in the box. So this is the heading value that goes in the box. I update that, and then you can change this box. You have control over like digits and how it rounds. Velocity here, so I get my, so here I'm just using my U velocity. This isn't great. You should use like calibrated airspeed or something more accurate, but I didn't want to send extra information to Unreal to calculate that, so I'm just using U to make it simple. I do some ratio stuff just to get it in a convenient range to move. I update this, same technique as we did before, and then I make that text and update the value in the box. Position, what is this for? Oh, altitude, so we looked at this briefly. Get my altitude. Again, update the text in the box. The roll pointer at the bottom. We did the pitch scale. This is the little triangle at the bottom for roll. Pretty simple there. And then this is my flight path indicator. I won't really go into this, but it's just getting the location, projecting it. Anyway, that's pretty much it. So the hardest part about this whole thing is just making the images. And then once you kind of figure out how to get one thing working and moving, it's kind of the same thing for everything else, depending on how complicated you want to make it. And as I mentioned before, this is the same kind of approach you would take to just put text on the screen or some other indicator that would throw it up on the viewport for the user to see. And I run this. Looks like I broke the ticker tape on the right hand side. I'll have to fix that. Yeah, you can kind of see how this works now. Hopefully this isn't as daunting or scary as maybe it seemed before. It's just drawing a picture and updating some variables and putting on the viewport on the screen. So hopefully this was helpful. There's a ton you can do in here depending on what you want to do for your project. There's other values you can display. So if I open up this one, start this, there's a couple, it's the exact same thing, but like this R is the representing like a radar ground penetration. So that's getting a line trace to the ground. And then it's also displaying Mach number. I just deleted those in mine because I didn't want to send extra values over UDP to my Unreal, but you can add whatever you want in here. So hopefully this was helpful, just seeing kind of how to walk through the whole loop of the process. So good luck in your projects, and I'll see you in the next one.